So now that we've covered different strategies that help actively retrieve and encode information into the long-term memory, let's look at factors that affect retrieval. So what are some ways that affect the way we retrieve information from our long-term memory? So even when people connect new information to their existing knowledge base, they sometimes can't always find it when they need it. Several factors influence the likelihood of successfully retrieving something from our long-term memory. So we're going to cover a couple of different examples here, one of which is situated learning or situated cognition. Sometimes learners acquire and practice certain behaviors and ways of thinking in a very limited set of environment, say let's in their science or programming class. When this happens, learners may associate those behaviors and ways of thinking only within those particular environments or in those classes, and then thus fail to retrieve what they've learned in different contexts. So situated learning or situated cognition is this tendency for some responses and cognitive processes to be associated with and retrieved in some contexts, but not in others. So an example I have here is a picture of two people working at a biotechnology company. Let's say you're trained in biological sciences, but you also took classes in programming and Python, for example. But then you encounter a job application that requires you to, in the biotechnology field, to draw on both of your knowledge structures or things that are in your long-term memory, but from these disparate types of fields, such as programming and biology. So situated cognition is an example of that, where you're failed to retrieve information that might combine both, or using one, maybe using your science skills in a programming class, or your programming class in your science class. So the failure to retrieve because of particular environments, that's this notion of situated cognition or situated learning. And some solutions to that is to have interdisciplinary instruction. Maybe there's a class that combines both science and programming, so you're actively using both at the same time. Maybe you're join an internship where you're a biotechnology internship, where you're actually learning about the process of using your science skills, using your knowledge structure from your long-term memory in your programming skills, so that way you are able to use both at the same time. Other things include personal experiences, trying to draw from your prior knowledge and prior lived experiences, and then also career development, just being in the workforce, learning how to use these different kinds of knowledge bases at the same time. Another is distinctiveness. So learners are more likely to remember things that are unique in some way. For instance, things that are new, unusual, or a bit bizarre. For example, second graders are more likely to remember a visit to an aquarium than, say, their teacher's explanation of the fish life cycle or the animal life cycle, because they're in an environment that really is distinct, that is really drawing out their learning and their excitement. Sometimes students are able to learn more because of that new, unusual, or a bit bizarre environment, something that is unique. And when college students recall what they've learned during, let's say, their undergraduate studies or their undergraduate learning experience, maybe they're more likely to remember an internship, a field study, a research opportunity, or a job that they experienced because they were actively using that information in an interesting or a unique way. Another area or an example that can affect retrieval is emotional overtones. So learners can pay attention as learners pay attention to and think about new information, their thoughts and their memories sometimes become emotionally charged, a phenomenon called hot cognition. So an example here is that learners might get excited when they read about advances in science that could lead to effective treatments for cancer, spinal cord injuries, or mental illness. Or they might feel sadness and compassion when they read about severely impoverished living conditions in certain parts of the world. So the topic that you might be learning about might be emotionally charged. It triggers an emotional reaction that allows you to remember that information even more. So when information is emotionally charged in some ways, learners are more likely to pay attention to it, continue to think about it for an extended period of time, and repeatedly elaborate on it. And over the long run, learners can usually retrieve material with high emotional content more easily than just recalling a relatively non-emotional information. So I have a picture of like Netflix here, and if you notice in the class, I like to use a lot of TV shows and like movies, particularly because I want to try and stimulate or simulate some of these emotional types of feelings or hot cognition in a way. So that it can help you recall and retrieve and encode that information in a different kind of modality, but helping you and encode and retrieve that information into your long-term memory. Also, it's just kind of, I might sound a little obvious, but regular practice and review. As noted earlier, rehearsal and mindlessly repeating information over and over again through rote memorization is a relatively ineffective way of getting information into your long-term memory. But by having regular practice and repetition over a lengthy time span, so reviewing and using information with periodic intervals over the course of weeks, months, or years, we're able to then practice and actively recall that information over a long period of time. So when practice is spread out in this manner, ideally in a variety of contexts, people of all ages learn something better and remember it longer. When learners continue to practice things that they've already mastered, they eventually achieve automaticity. They can retrieve what they've learned quickly and effortlessly, and they can use it without a lot of thinking. So one of the things that I pulled this example of like working out, for example, right? Initially, when you're working out, it can be really tough and it can be, you know, draining on your body, and you might feel, not motivated. But, you have this idea of, oh, I want to be fit. I want to be healthy. I want to look a certain way. And I know that working out will get me there. Oftentimes, we know that doing one workout session is not going to lead to the, you know, fitness journey goals that we want. And a lot of the times it's going to take more than a day, more than a week, more than months. It's going to take several years of constantly repeating, doing certain kinds of exercises, having a regular practice, having a regular schedule. And over time, we might get to that fitness goal or fitness journey that we're looking for.